Monday morning here on Birds 365. I guess we could call it Misery Monday after last night's or yesterday afternoon's kind of disastrous results, at least defensively, for the Philadelphia Eagles as they get pummeled down at the link by the Kansas City Chiefs. Here to talk about it for the next 2 hours are your Mac and Mac Birds 365 guys. Jody McDonald along with my partner, John McMullen. A little bit of a long day at the office yesterday, John?
Game days always are, Jody, but nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about the trials and tribulations of a sports writer. So I'll leave that aside. I think the trials and tribulations of the Philadelphia Eagles defense are the bigger story. But I got to tell you, I mean, I was expecting this. We talked about it all summer. Can you win a shootout? I don't think you're capable of winning a shootout at this stage of the game. We just had an NFL game without a punt. I didn't get to watch Aaron Seapost yesterday. He was holding, so he was out there. But that's the most.
I don't even know who the Kansas City punter is off the top of my head.
Tommy Townsend, I believe. I looked it up yesterday because he didn't punt either.
Who? What wasn't he beside Roger Daltrey? Townsend?
Yeah, not that Townsend.
Okay, different Townsend.
He didn't punt either, so you wouldn't have noticed him. Yeah, it was a pretty amazing game the way it went up and down the field from both perspectives. So if you want a moral victory, the Eagles offense played pretty well. They got back to a lot of those week one concepts, get the football out of the hands of Jalen Hurts quickly. And it worked. And they played within that construct and they played certainly well enough to win a typical game that didn't include Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill, who were just unbelievable. I can only, I'm trying to figure out, people ask me, what are the Eagles trying to do defensively? My only guess is you look at the drive chart, and Kansas City drives weren't typical Kansas City drives. They were long drives. There were 3 over 10. There was a 12, an 11, and 11. There was an 8 and 8. So it seems to me they were trying to keep the big plays under control, which until the very end in Tyreek Hill, they got gouged, obviously, but and hoping for the mistake. And, you kind of flip the game that way. Never came. They didn't make a mistake.
Yeah, and the week before they had 4 turnovers. So
and they did turn it over once, but that wasn't enough.
Not a big deal. An overused phrase in football these days, just my personal edification, is get off the field. And a lot of guys use it. Broadcasters, players, we got to get off the field, got to get off the and it does. It just bothers me. It rubs me the wrong way for whatever reason, because nobody said that 25, 30 years ago. But now everybody says it all the time. But we get it. We understand what it means, right? Yeah. Eagles couldn't get off the field yesterday. 9 of 10 on third down conversion. Yeah. You got to be able to stop them on third down every once in a while. So you get off the field, you get some rest, you get your offense out there, you get the time of possession a little bit closer to 50-50. The Eagles defense was hideously bad in their ability to get off the field yesterday.
Yeah, and I agree. And, you might not like the phrasing, but it is true. It's interesting. I was thinking about arena football. I don't know if you've ever seen an arena football game, Jody, but when they had that, it was a big deal. Like if you had one stop, it could flip the whole game.
Right.
And I'm not saying the NFL has become that, but when you play great offenses who are performing at a high level, it has almost become that. It's about getting off the field. It's about one stop here, one key stop there, because it's impossible to stop these high octane offenses. Now, look, I don't like it. A lot of people like it. We talk about the shift in the NFL. I think I talk about it all the time. The defenses are up against it. That's one of the surprises about the illegal downfield stuff. There's so many penalties on these RPOs that the defense is screwed because, these offensive linemen are already downfield blocking. They've made it a point of emphasis to call that. The Eagles have been called
Yeah,
They
and
got
keep hitting
killed
the
by it
Eagles, right?
a number of times because they're so hard RPO heavy. It's interesting. If this were last year or 2 years ago, they probably look great because they wouldn't be calling these penalties. So they've kind of gotten caught up in that sort of mix. But man, it's hard. My larger point is it's so hard for defenses in this league, especially against great offenses. And every once in a while, they throw a little cookie to the defense, and they're calling some illegal downfield penalties. And of course, it's hurting the Eagles of probably more than any other team because I think they're probably just, if they're not more RPO heavy than every other team, they're certainly close. I haven't had time, obviously, to watch all 32 teams, but
I think the Ravens are the only one that are in their ballpark because they got Lamar Jackson.
yeah.
The Eagles have Jalen Hurts. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson. They're the two RPO heaviest teams in the league.
Yeah. So it's really affected them. And, people are killing Andre Dillard. He's doing his job. And Nick Sirianni said that after the game. That's what he's supposed to do. But when the football doesn't, it's a timing play. When the football doesn't come out immediately on time, you get your hand caught in the cookie jar. And if they're calling it again, 2 years ago, they wouldn't have called it. We are where we are.
All right. Tail of two sides of the football as far as the Eagles are concerned yesterday for me. The offense, even though they didn't score enough points and they lost the game, and I'm not going to really put much stock in their last touchdown because the Chiefs were in major prevent defense, so we'll keep that in its proper context. But even with that said, the offense was pretty damn good yesterday. The defense was not. And we need to point out where the issues are. Number one, John McMullen, come on, you got to admit you're guilty. You're not by yourself. There are a whole bunch of other guys in this town that are guilty too, members of the media. Jonathan Gannon is going to be a head coach someday.
I still think he is. I'm not backing off that.
You're not?
No.
Okay, we'll see about that because his defense looked pretty damn porous these last couple of weeks. Might be a bright guy, might be well respected. If you're going to be giving up a 40 spot on a week in, week out basis, you're not getting the big whistle anytime soon. The Eagle defense was just terrible, and they're getting gashed at the point of attack. When Patrick Mahomes goes off and throws 5 touchdowns, you're not really surprised because he's Patrick Mahomes. When Tyreek Hill does what he does yesterday, he's one of the best wide receivers in the league, which, by the way, I said this on my CBS show last night. There's some people that talk about Tyreek Hill as if all he is like Deshaun Jackson. 4.2 speed who gets behind the defense and catches 75-yard touchdown. No, he's good in every aspect of the wide receiver game, and he showed that to the Eagles yesterday. So if you get beat up by the passing game, okay, fine, they're the best in the league, or one of the best. You can make the argument they're the best. 200 yards on the ground yesterday? 200 yards on the ground? How do you let the Kansas City Chiefs, who would rather throw it than run it, they're coached by Andy Reid, so we know they'd rather throw it than run it. How do you give up 200 yards on the ground to the Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, I think it's ironic that of all teams, they give up 200 to Andy Reid, who doesn't even want to run the football. They just do it by mistake because the Eagles' run defense is so bad. So 2 things I have there. One, they were trying to put, and by the way, I agree with this philosophy. You're trying, and that's why I brought up the length of the drives. They were trying to limit the big plays. They were trying to stop, and they didn't, Tyreek Hill. And I agree with you 100% with Tyreek Hill. I've never seen a speed guy track the football like he does in the intermediate routes.
Yep.
Like you see Randy Moss, Deshaun Jackson, they're great down the field. Those tremendous historic speed guys. This guy catches everything on every level. It's amazing to watch. So that's what they were trying to do. And they're saying, you know what? Let's let Clyde Edwards-Helaire beat us. Let's let their running game beat us. And they did. Now, from a personnel perspective, the linebackers stink. Like, Jonathan Gannon's not going to say that. He's not going to throw them under the bus. I mean, they're not good. This is a personnel issue. This is an off-season issue. You can kill Eric Wilson. You can kill Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards. They tried Sean Bradley. Davion Taylor was in there for a couple plays. TJ Edwards, obviously. Okay, pick two. Give me your two. Who's going to
Any
stop
two.
this bleeding? I mean, so one, it's a personnel issue. Then you lose Brandon Graham, and I said, he might be the most underrated player in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I say that with a straight face because people do not realize how good he is, especially in the running game, setting the edge, which affects so many other things. And you say, well, they're running it up the middle. Yeah, they're running it up the middle, but when you have a guy who can set an edge, you can do more things in the middle to make up for those issues. And I'm not saying if Brandon was out there, he's going to make up for those linebackers because he's not. But it was going to be, it would be a little bit better than it has been. And then the second part is you got to be the best part of the Eagles defense moving forward. And I was telling you this before the show started, Jody, is the schedule. You have Dallas on the schedule and Kansas City on the schedule. These are two of the top 5 offenses in the NFL. I've been saying it long before this arrived. If you have an offensive team that plays at a high level, it's impossible to play defense in this league. Number one, I mean, the old adage in baseball, right, is good pitching beats good hitting. It used to be good defense beats good offense in the NFL. No more. If you have a good offense and you're performing at a high level, you're going to win the game. You're going to win the game. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and a couple of guys I need to note, sorry to say, on Eagles defensive line, which you're right, the linebackers is terrible. That's the biggest issue that the Philadelphia Eagles have right now, but it doesn't give a free pass to some of the guys on that defensive line. Ryan Kerrigan played again, and you're there, so you see who's coming on and off the field. On TV, you're kind of a slave to where they keep the camera. I didn't know for sure whether Ryan Kerrigan played. Not how many plays, whether he played or not. Because I didn't catch his number on any plays during the game and had to wait till they put out the snap count after the game was over and done with to double check and make sure that he played. And he did about a third of the snaps in the game. Once again, I didn't know it. And guilty as charged. I thought it was a really good signing, under the radar signing. Use whatever phrase to describe it you want. Kind of a steal from the Washington football team. I know the guy banged up his finger in preseason, and it kept them out of all of the preseason games and the like, but he's still drawing a check, right? He's getting paid. I know he's showing up and is getting dressed for the game, but he hasn't made a difference on any plays in 4 weeks. He hasn't done anything. What the hell, John?
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to our buddy Tony Khan's analytics company, True Media. Ryan Kerrigan now, I believe, is at over 100 snaps with not one statistic on the season. Not a tackle, not a quarterback hit, nothing. I think it's a combination of things. I think we talked a little bit. It was not a finger, number one. It was a thumb. So that's
Right.
a serious injury.
Well, that's is a finger a thumb?
Well, I meant,
is a thumb a finger?
I meant the thumb is more important. Like if you hurt your index finger and you're a defensive lineman, it shouldn't matter. But a thumb, because you need your thumb, as we know, is an opposable thumb versus you need your thumb to move your hand, your entire. So what I'm saying is it's more important than, say, the pinky or the index finger. That's all I meant by that. So it was a pretty serious injury. Ryan says he can't grab. So that affects you as a defensive lineman. That's number one. Number two, I am going to rip Jonathan Gannon here. He's playing Ryan Kerrigan at 5 technique, way too much. What is that? What 5 technique? This guy's a 3-4 outside linebacker or a pure edge rusher. Maybe if you want to stick him inside in those A-gap looks and blitz him, all right. But 5 technique, if you would have told me, and I'm not going to sit here and say I know more about defensive football than Jonathan Gannon, but if you ask me, where am I not going to play Ryan Kerrigan? I'm going to say 5 technique first. I don't understand that. I will never understand that. So I think he's playing out of position. And then the third, he was a legendary player for Washington. nobody knows him better than Washington. Maybe he's got nothing left in the tank. You
Right.
got to enter that into the equation as well.
Same here. That's I have to acknowledge that. As I said, I thought it was a really good signing. I thought it was a steal for the Washington football team. The guy may be done, and if that's the case, then the Eagles, and I know the guys coming off the bench and the guys they could go to are nothing special. Again, back to Jeff Lurie, and this is a transition year. I know we're only 1-3. It's still very early in the season. Kind of ticks me off that 1-3 doesn't even get you to the quarter pole. I always like to say after the fourth game, well, at least we've got a quarter of the season done. We don't, since we now have 17 games. So you, again, have to keep it in the perspective of what a season is. Ryan Kerrigan's season may be over. Shoot, maybe his career's over. Because that number you gave, that he's played 4 games and has not generated one stat yet, that he has not been involved in a meaningful way in any plays, over 100 plays that he's been on the field, is pretty damn telling. Only he and his doctors and the coaches know whether this thumb injury, very important thumb injury, is the reason why, but he's given them nothing. Even scarier, forget about Ryan Kerrigan, because, all right, fine, he can't play. We took a shot. We paid him some money. We gave him some snaps. He can't play. You move on. You find out who the next player is going to be there. Fletcher Cox is only a couple plays, one of them being a touchdown. I know, it was a big play. But other than that, he's not that far ahead of Ryan Kerrigan on hitting the stat sheet. And please don't hit me with the Fletcher Cox is double teamed on every play. You know who's double teamed on every play? Javon Hargrave. And somehow he continues to get sacks, make tackles for loss, create havoc. He's getting double teamed now too, because he's been that good, and he continues to make big plays. Fletcher Cox, non-existent. And oh, by the way, if he is not the player that he once was, that has a much graver effect on the Eagles, because not only is he signed for many years at many millions of dollars, the Eagles keep doing his contract, which is pushing his money into further years. We know the price they're paying for the dead cap money they got in Carson Wentz this year. Is Fletcher Cox going to be one of those guys within the next 2 years too, John?
I think you have to start talking about it for the first time. He's not playing well. He's certainly not playing up to what the standard has been for Fletcher Cox. Again, sometimes playing out of position, so maybe you have to point something at Jonathan Gannon as well. I always get mocked from my boy Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz is starting to look better and better as we move forward. One of the things, and I just mentioned it with Ryan Kerrigan, and I'm going to say it with Fletcher Cox. If you're going to use these 3-4 looks and you're going to play Fletcher Cox at 0 or 1 technique, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. That's not what he is. He's not a nose tackle. He's a 3 technique. He's been a dominant 3 technique for a lot of years in this league, to the point where other teams, other offenses game plan for him and say, okay, where do we start with Philadelphia Eagles? For years, it was, we got to block Fletcher and we got to block Brandon. That's where you start. Now I think as teams start to watch this film, it's going to be, you got to block Javon Hargrave. Again, we're back in the same murky category. Is he playing out of position too much? Is he unhappy with this defense after being in the Jim Schwartz defense? Or is he just descending as a player? Too often, I can't tell you how many times, Jody, perfect example on the other side of the football. Is Josh Gordon going to play? Is Josh Gordon going to play? Is Josh Gordon going to play for the Kansas City Chiefs? I'm like, number one, who cares? Josh Gordon hasn't been Josh Gordon in years. There's this weird assumption by too many fans that everybody stays in a stasis. You were once a good player, you're always going to be a good player. Doesn't happen like that in the NFL. And usually you drop off the table pretty quickly. Hopefully we're not there with Fletcher Cox. For the first time, I think you got to put that in the mix, though, and say, what the heck is going on? Because he's not making any plays either. And the one he did play that you brought up, that was really Javon Hargrave as well. The ball flipped out to him.
The ball just happened to flip up in the air, and he was good enough to grab it and then get on the ground and swim. They just Fletcher, try and stay on your feet there, big guy. And your point about them playing 3-4 defenses. Why would you do that if you're the Philadelphia Eagles? If you're playing a 3-4, that means you believe that your linebackers better. You're trying to get more linebackers on the field. How are the Eagles linebackers? They stink on ice. Why would you do that? Come on, it doesn't make any sense. Jonathan Gannon having issues here in the last 2 weeks with the Eagles defense. All right, so we still got plenty to break down. I asked John to see if he could get our buddy Bob Grotz on with us today. Because you remember, back at the beginning of the season, Bob Grotz tried to hit us up with, you see how tough this Eagles schedule is, right? Atlanta, they're going to be an underdog, and then it gets hard thereafter. Well, even as an underdog, they did win week number 1. But hard thereafter has kicked the Eagles hard in the you-know-whats as of right now at 1-3. So Bob Grotz, our buddy, is going to join us next right here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
A Monday live edition of Birds 365. McMullen and McDonald here with you. We are joined by our esteemed colleague from the Delco Times, been covering the Eagles for years, and gave us some pretty good insight, even though we kind of mocked them and knocked them for predicting a pretty tough start for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's looking that much more right after 4 games. Bob Grotz of the Delaware County Times, our guest here on Birds 365. You look good there, Bob. You look like a guy in a horror film. Are you trying to make a testament to the Philadelphia Eagles' first 4 games here? If you are, you're succeeding.
This is as good as it gets at 8:30 in the morning, guys. And And what a weird day it was. My weird day started on the way into the parking lot, believe it or not. Somebody wanted to have their photograph taken of me in a selfie.
Nice.
I don't know who they mistook me for. Maybe John McMullen or something. Yeah. I told them I wasn't famous, but it was a strange day.
Yeah, that I didn't hear that. You didn't
No.
tell me that the entire game that somebody tried to take a selfie with Bob Grotz. That
I don't know.
prognosticator of all prognosticators.
Yes. Yeah.
That's
I don't
why.
know what was weirder, Jody, that or whoever it was turning off the lights in the press box right after the game.
Very, very
right
early.
after we went up to right. There was more light in the bathroom to right.
Yeah, they were trying to get us out of there, Bob. So
Yeah.
where do we start with this game? When you look at this game, third down defense, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, where do you start? What went wrong for the Philadelphia Eagles other than, it's a rookie head coach against Andy Reid?
Yeah.
It's a second-year quarterback with his eighth start against Patrick Mahomes. Should we have expected anything else?
No, that's pretty much what you would expect. I mean, they scored with 4 seconds left, or they would have lost by what? 20?
Yeah. Well,
that's about
42-30. So yeah.
40. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what you expect. I think it was good that they didn't. Well, that they stayed competitive at least. But with the Chiefs defense, you're going to do that. And but what really impressed me when I took a look at that was and I looked just looked through the play-by-play. They used almost the same game plan that the Chargers used the previous week, and the short passes, mixing it up, and even mixing in runs in that. I mean, that was like that was a straight steal from the Chargers, and that was smart. And I think the book is out there on the Chiefs what to do. They weren't as successful in the red zone though, and that was a big deal. What was it, John? 3 of the first 4 trips into the red zone, no touchdowns.
They got ultimately they got 3 touchdowns taken off the board. 2 of them in the red zone. One was the OPI on JJ Arcega-Whiteside. One was the illegal man downfield on Andre Dillard. So. Both were legit, according to, Gene Steratore, I know, said, hey, everybody was upset about the JJ penalty. They're going to call that. If you're not subtle on that, they're going to call it. I mean, it is what it is at this point. But Nick Sirianni always talks about eliminating the mistakes that don't require talent, however he words that.
No
when
talent
are they going to
penalty.
do that? Yeah. When are they going to do that, Bob?
Yeah. I mean, I think Lane Johnson took a touchdown off the board in the first game for who was it? Kenneth Gainwell, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's veterans and young people alike. So, I mean, you can't. I mean, that's nice to say. If they had scored those 3 touchdowns, it would have been a different game. Well, obviously it would, but the Chiefs blew it too when they didn't challenge the fumble at the goal line right before
that was out.
Touchdown.
That was out.
Yeah, I mean that we couldn't see it from our angle, and I'm sure that it was difficult and all the confusion for the Chiefs to get a good look. There weren't a lot of replays shown, but they should have at least called a timeout. But when you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you can afford to save your timeouts, right? I mean, and I think that's it. When we talk about that game, I mean Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. Wow, I mean, and how many times in that. In the press box, did we watch Tyreek Hill put a move on an Eagles defender or defenders? They were rolling a safety towards him and go, "Wow, that guy, he's uncoverable.
Unbelievable.
He's uncoverable." So I think all in all, they did what I expected. I think I had them losing by 20 points. So, but and that's the crowd. I think they only booed once that whole game, Jody, which was I thought it was going to be a boo fest. But the Eagles, are they that? I still don't think they're that good. They have some pieces, but not enough. And I think it's going to be tough this week too when they go into Carolina. Yeah,
we'll get to Carolina in a second. Yeah. We got a lot of dissecting yet of this game to go. I heard this. I thought I heard it through the speakers on my TV yesterday. Tell me, you mentioned no booing. I thought I heard at times chants of run the ball, because the Eagles didn't run it again much yesterday, certainly more so than the previous game, but not much. Again, I didn't think the offense was the problem. I thought the offense, all right, they came up a little small in the red zone a couple times, as both you guys noted. If they didn't get penalized in the red zone, maybe they'd scored touchdowns instead of getting field goals. That's something that needs to be worked on, and Sirianni acknowledged that. To me, this was about the defense. You talk about them copying what San Diego did. It worked. Good for them. San Diego got 4 turnovers last week. The Eagles got 1. San Diego didn't give up near as many points. Didn't give up 200 yards rushing like the Eagle defense had. This is about the defense, not about the offense, Bob Grotz.
Yeah, they don't have many players there, Jody. I mean, their talent is definitely on the offensive side of the ball. They have Javon Hargrave up front, and he's good. Well, I don't know what. I know Fletcher Cox. I don't know if he's hurt or what, but he sure didn't make a big impact on that game. Derek Barnett seemed like a step behind, and they missed Brandon Graham and the linebackers. Wow, I mean, and I'm not ripping those guys, but they're not the guys.
Rip them.
They're not the linebackers.
They deserve to be ripped.
But they're not the guys that you want in this defense if they're going to run it like this. And they're still not. They're just not that good. And Jalen Hurts, you can look at those numbers and think they were really good, but that red zone stuff, even with the penalties, if he gets over the hump there, then he'll convince me that he's the one. But I still don't. I still have my doubts. I think he played well, but I still don't know if he's the guy. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I still don't know if he's the guy. And you could say after 387, well, look at that defense. I mean, the Chiefs were giving up 32 points a game.
Yeah.
The Eagles got 30. And 32 points a game, that's the worst scoring defense in the league. The Eagles got 30, okay? And they got more, the Chiefs, 40 points, that was 10 more than what they were averaging. But so if you look at it in those terms, it's that was to be expected what happened out there. And oh, by the way, Big Red, who was criticized and castigated weekly for not running the ball, gets 200 yards on the ground.
Oh,
that was too much. Jody, I asked him that in the post-game press conference. I went over to Big Red, who was really gracious to the Philly writers, saying you guys, but he said you guys are tough. You got to be nicer to Nick or whatever. But I asked him about that. I said, 200 yards rushing, what's up with that? And he started laughing and he said, I saved that for you guys, But it was the way that he did it too. With Tyreek Hill, Andy Reid's still a masterful schemer and play caller. He motioned Tyreek Hill, and that would draw 2 people, to whatever side he motioned him to, and that would open up the run. That's 2 less tacklers right there, And with Kelsey, I watched when I was watching the replay on that touchdown to the tight end with Fortson or whatever.
Yeah, Fortson.
Yeah. Okay. Kelsey, Travis Kelsey was waving his arms and like he wanted the ball, like the Eagles were in the wrong defense.
Yeah.
He drew a lot of attention to him, and it was a shovel pass to the tight end who walked in, without getting touched in the middle. I mean,
it's amazing. Andy is amazing with those shovel passes. But everybody knows they're coming, but nobody can copy it. Nobody's been able to replicate it on a consistent basis. It's coming, and like you said, you probably think it's coming to Kelsey, and all of a sudden, who the heck is Fortson? I got to look at this, and
right.
He just walks into the end zone.
It usually does go to Kelsey too. He's like the master of those. But they play really smart, and 42 points. Jody, I don't think that the Chiefs played really. I don't think they played good. They played good enough to win, but they could have played a lot better too. So where does that leave the Eagles? Well, they're trying to build that culture, and Hurts, he spoke to the team afterwards, and he told them they were close, real close. I applaud him for that. He's really working hard to try to get this team over the hump. I just don't think it's going to happen.
All right, Bob, let's Andy told us to be a little bit easy on Nick, but let's not do that because I want to talk about the first drive of the game. 4th and 3. I think he makes the right decision. You got to understand the opponent. Field goals aren't going to do anything for you.
Right. No, that's
team.
for sure. Yeah.
You got to understand the opponent. He was going to go for it, but he gets in the play too late. All of a sudden, there's this mix-up. Did they call delay a game? Did they not call delay a game? They come out of it and kick the field goal. Who cares? Jake Elliott makes it. I think it was a 29-yarder. He's got this. You're going to go for it. Go with your gut. Understand the opponent. Why do you think he changed his mind at the last minute?
Well, he got that ironed out. He was more decisive as the game went on. I don't know. At first, I thought that Hurts was just trying to draw the Chiefs offside, but I think he got into a flow and he started to realize, what we all know. Or what I say, what we all know. Like he doesn't know it. I think it's different when you're calling the plays. So, but in terms of Nick and and that type of stuff, his play calling, I didn't think he was that bad. I still think it's personnel. It's who you have, and they're going to have to coach the young guys a little bit better. I mean, that's 2 guys who have had big gains taken away, touchdown. Devontae Smith,
mistake,
is simply stepping out of bounds. He did it. He stepped out of bounds at least once. I mean, I don't know, the attention to detail in that. They got to work on that some more. But what John was talking about, those no talent penalties, I think that happens. That's a little bit of that's coaching, but some of that is your personnel, and it's really young. The skills guys are really young, and Jalen Hurts is trying to rally them, but he does his best to rally them, and they still lose by 2 touchdowns in a league where every game is decided by 7 points or less. I mean, so that's where they are. I mean, that's where this program is.
Bob, I keep coming back to the defense. The offense is more interesting to try and pick apart and analyze. I get that. But they lost that game yesterday just because of the defense. I know how good Kansas City is on offense, so they weren't going to hold them to 17 or 18 points. A 40 spot's a 40 spot any way you slice it. Individuals, back to defensive individual. Rodney McLeod returning to the defense yesterday. He do anything to make you believe that he was missed, and when they got him back yesterday, was going to upgrade the defense? Because he hit it pretty well for me. I didn't see Rodney make too many plays either. I thought he could be a key re-addition for not only his play, but leadership as well, and they could use that with Brandon Graham out of the lineup. Rodney McLeod, one of the captains, didn't do anything for me yesterday. Bob, how about you?
Yeah, well, I think coming off that knee, his first action of the season, and this is a tough team to play against. I think early on he did some things, but after that, I think he kind of wore down. And the Eagles are just, on defense, I'm not even sure what the game plan was there, except they wanted to try to get a couple guys on Tyreek Hill, and they wanted to try to jam Kelsey. I think they did a good job of jamming Kelsey and limiting him a little bit. But I mean, with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, you're going to have to. Let's go back to the Super Bowl where the Bucks beat the Chiefs. You're just going to have to pound him on every play. And he had a toe issue in that Super Bowl. Mahomes did, so he wasn't 100%. You're just going to have to pound him every play to get something going. And as much as we like what Hargrave has done so far, and we like Josh Sweat, what he's done, Sweaty, that's not enough. You need more guys, and I keep going back to that. That's the story of the whole defense for me, Jody. They need some more players. They only have a few, and in the back end of that defense, you got to you get what you pay for it pretty much, and they got a few guys on 1-year deals and veterans, and they're doing their best, but you can run any scheme, and they're gonna struggle against that.
All right, one player on the back end who is playing well, Bob, and this is going to upset people because he's chirping on social media. Darius Slay.
He had a good game.
He had a really good game, and I think people don't recognize it. There was this one little section where they had Slay traveling with Tyreek Hill.
Right.
Andy Reid was smart enough not to throw him the football at that time. And for whatever reason, they go back to their zone concept, and here come the big plays again. But Slay was out there on social media saying, I think he's had 2 receivers in his entire career get 100 yards on him. He wasn't responsible. That doesn't come across well. Where are you with Darius Slay? I mean, does he have to tone it down? Is it nice to have somebody with that kind of swagger? I thought he played well yesterday. I really did. It's hard to say 42 points, 5 touchdowns, Tyreek Hill. It wasn't on Darius Slay. It wasn't.
Yeah, he's kind of an outlier. I mean, I don't know how his teammates know that he's a jokester. He likes to have fun, but that kind of stuff, I don't see how that does any good. It's not, he didn't get that on me. I'm like that stuff that we would share with ourselves,
I know.
behind when the boss isn't looking. So I don't know, but I'll say this: it's pretty clear that he's really frustrated about losing, and 3 in a row. I mean, this is like Detroit Lions stuff again. What did he say? He wanted to chug down a orange juice, to get rid of the taste of this.
Yeah. And he got me in trouble on 6 ABC because I said shit because he said shit so many times. I blurted out shit. I think he said it 6 times.
Well, you get a flyer from me because we know that the what, that's the what, or this is the what. Yeah. Hey, that's kind of a figure of speech, but but he's going to have to deal with that, that frustration. Those are bad optics right there, for a team that's struggling. If you want to be a leader, maybe that's why he's not one of the captains too. I don't know. Maybe he needs to be a little bit more serious about, his work, but he was good yesterday. And a couple of times I saw Tyreek Hill actually, tap him on the helmet, an obvious sign of respect. So, but he's, outlier with his personality, and he's kind of the guy in the back end of that defense. And in the you get what you pay for category, he's the one making the money. So they may have made the right decision on him. But when I talk about money too, guys, I know this probably wasn't part of your thinking today, but after I watched that offensive line, 4 guys that starters that didn't begin the season, I'm starting to think maybe they ought to start shedding some salaries there.
They played pretty well. They weren't the issue.
Yeah, I mean, shed some salaries and bulk up. Reinforce that defense. And if you're not convinced that Hurts is a quarterback, we'll have some more games to look at that. Go in that direction. They're going to have some draft capital, though they should have some money. So, and some of those offensive linemen, they're making some big bucks. So, they got some decisions to make. And while you're at it, if you're going to turn this into an overhaul, there's some guys on the defense too. Well, there's a defensive tackle that you might want to ask, where he wants to play. Because if you look at the game sheets this year, it's pretty clear that 91 doesn't want to play right now for the Eagles.
If this was a transitional year, you start talking about making the moves that you're talking about. Oh my God, what are we going to call next year's team if they decide to do that?
Yeah, I think it will be in a little bit. I mean,
are we overreacting? Last one from me, Bob. Are we overreacting? Because this is an outlier. You're not going to play Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill every week. On the other end, you're not going to play against Steve Spagnuolo's defense. You know how I feel about that every week.
And look at the defense.
Maybe we should flush this one. Maybe we should flush this one.
Oh, you're going to get me into trouble again. Yeah, right.
What do you think of that? Should we flush this one? Does it mean as much as we think it means?
Yeah, well, I mean, it is. This is who they are right now. They can play. I mean, if you look at the numbers, you could say, yeah, they played well on offense. They didn't play well on defense. But if you look at the entire program, they were 13 points, like I was saying, 13 points worse than, what is it, a 500 team? If you are what your record is and those numbers, they were 13 points less than that team. And it could have been 20 if it hadn't been for that, the Eagles scoring with 4 seconds left. The game was over. So that's who the Eagles are. And talking about, are they going to have a shot next week at Carolina? That's going to be a tough game. And especially coming off a loss like this. And then they get Tampa. And even though the game's here, that's going to be tough. But I still don't think they just don't have the guys. And I think when we look back at this season, that we'll look at it as, Nick tried to establish his culture, and they wanted to see who wanted to play for him. And guess what? You're in for some big changes at the end of the year with the veterans.
Nick, last one for me. And Bob, gonna give you credit. I was thinking about Nick Sirianni. You came on before the season started and said to us before the Atlanta game, if they don't win this one, this could be a pretty damn bad start to the season. And you clicked off San Francisco and Dallas and Kansas City. They've been underdog in all 4 games. Next week against Carolina, I'm guaranteeing you they're an underdog. The week after that against Tampa, I even know it's guarantee they're an underdog. In Vegas, well, the Raiders are 3-0. They could be one of only 2 4-0 teams after Monday Night Football tonight. On the road, they're going to be an underdog against Vegas, which means the first 7 weeks are going to be underdogs. At Detroit on a Sunday, October 31st, Halloween, will the Eagles be an underdog again? Are they going to go the entire first half of the season, or at least the first 8 games, as an underdog every single game?
Yeah, that could happen. I mean, look what happened yesterday. Kansas City, what were they? They had been an underdog. I mean, they had been like one in their 11 in their last 12 against the spread.
Yeah,
they hadn't covered. Yeah. I mean that was, but I think you'd be safe. Yeah, they could be the underdog against Detroit. I mean, and it's going to depend on what personnel is still healthy, but whatever it is, you just have to kind of roll with the other team right now if you want to, and expect them to cover, because
assume you're right. And I know we're really stretching it here because we're talking about something that we got 5 more weeks of results to get in before we get there. At home against the Chargers, week 9, underdog or favorite?
That doesn't look good. I'd say underdog.
Oh, I'd say underdog.
Next week at Denver against the Broncos in the Mile High.
Underdog. They never play well there for whatever reason. The thin air, whatever. Underdog.
Sunday, November 21st, back here at the Link. New Orleans Saints coming to town. Eagles a favorite or underdog?
Underdog. Yeah. Sean Payton always beats them.
Week 12 at the New York Giants. Giants got their first win yesterday.
Favorite.
They're on the road.
Favorite. Giants are terrible by that point.
You think they're going to be a favorite in that game?
I think there's a chance.
That could be
Probably
even.
Not, though.
That could be even, but
maybe.
I'd take the Giants.
Yeah.
And the week after that against the Jets. How about my Jets getting a win yesterday?
Definitely favorite against them.
Wow.
Ooh, be careful with that. Jets could be 2-3 by the end of next week. Watch out. They're on the come. Hey, Bob Grotz, thank you very much for coming on with us. You are always entertaining, and I am proud of you that you stopped and did the selfie with the Eagle fans. You're going to get that much more of it going forward, because you are the voice of doom.
Pro Football Report too. Talk Merrill off the ledge, Bob. I'm not
Merrill's
famous. Be upset.
Right. I'm not famous. I'm infamous. Yeah.
You look infamous today. Thank you for being infamous with us. That is Bob Grotz of the Delco Times, here with us on Birds 365. We kid because we care, right? Tampa, Carolina, Tampa, Vegas, at Detroit, home Chargers, at Denver, home New Orleans, at the Giants, at the Jets. Now, those are 2 road games. I think they're as good a team as either of those 2 teams.
I think Detroit, there's a chance, depending on how things go, that they will be favorite. obviously, if Detroit continues to lose. The Giants probably not. That'll be a home and home. They'll be favored when the Giants come here.
Right.
The Jets, I think there's a chance, depending, if Zach Wilson starts playing well. It's a lot of time, but there's a chance they'll be favored in that game.
A chance. They're 0 for 4 so far in favoritism this year. 1-3 record-wise, and yesterday's was pretty ugly because the point that Bob made is true. And I hesitated. One of my pro picks for the week, I make 3 every single week, 3 or 4, was I gave the 7 points with the Chiefs. I thought they were going to put 40 points up, and they did. Even though it was in the face of the Chiefs never cover big numbers. They just don't. They haven't the last year and change. Oh, they did yesterday against the Eagles, and the final score was a little deceptive because, yes, the Eagles scored with 3 seconds or 4 seconds left to go when they get that last touchdown.
4 seconds left, I believe.
They have a word to describe. They have a phrase to describe
garbage time. We got a lot of garbage time stats being, people talking about Jalen Hurts. Well, his stats. I mean,
agree.
That's a lot of garbage time stats over the past 2 weeks.
Did compile some stats late in games. The phrase I like to use is, oh, by the way. They didn't really impact the outcome of the game. Oh, by the way, put up a bunch of numbers and some points too. We'll come back and talk more about that. John McMullen, Jody McDonald, we are Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
The glass is for cocktails, right?
It's for this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Yeah, okay, but is the rib...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Misery Monday here on Birds 365. I'm McMullen and Jody McDonald hanging with you on the tail end of a beatdown by the Kansas City Chiefs at the link yesterday. We're recapping. We thank Bob Grotz for doing just that with us. will continue to do so here. And I do want to put an optimistic spin on things. One day last week, weren't you in the major optimistic mode, John? You were trying to be
I was trying to
optimistic.
figure out a way. I couldn't, but I was trying. I was
I-
trying to give the people some hope. Joe Krause always wants to go into a game optimistic, so I was trying to look for optimism, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. I looked at Steve Spagnuolo's defense, and that turned out to be true. That guy, because he's from Philadelphia and he's won, it's weird. He's had already coming into this season 2 of the worst 5 defenses in NFL history with 2 different organizations, New Orleans and the New York Giants. And now he's on pace to have another one. Andy Reid better get that side because Kansas City's a legitimate Super Bowl contender. But if that defense can't at least do some things, they're not going to win the Super Bowl.
I'm not as down on him as you are, but their defense is not good this year, and it's a major issue for them trying to get back to a Super Bowl. But before we go there, I do want to throw out a quasi-optimistic point, John. I'm trying to do the same thing you did last week, reaching for an optimistic point of view, and it ain't easy. From the Misery Loves Company file, there are 8 new head coaches in the NFL this year. 8 teams turned over their coaching staffs this past offseason. They are Dan Campbell, Urban Meyer, Robert Saleh, Arthur Smith, David Culley, Brandon Staley, and Nick Sirianni. I did the math.
It's not good.
They are a combined 6-21. With Brandon Staley
carrying that lot.
He has 2 of those 6 wins in 8 coaches. 8! You got a couple offers there in Dan Campbell and Urban Meyer. There's only 2 0-4 teams in the league right now, and they are both coached by first-year coaches. So if you want to crush Nick Sirianni today, and, oh, by the way, he's in charge of the entire team. I know defense is in his ballywick, and that's kind of under Gannon's purview, but he's the coach of the whole team, so it's got to at least fall under his auspices. He's not the only struggling new first-year head coach in the NFL. They all are, if you don't count Brandon Staley, because at least
it's weird. Usually there's a situation in the league where we always talk about shelf life. Everybody has a shelf life in the NFL as a coach. Andy Reid in Philadelphia being a perfect example. It's a very good coach, but it was just time. Usually there's a situation where you have a new coach going in with a team that has pretty good personnel, and they just stop listening to the former coach and they turn it around and have that. It hasn't happened this year with this group. So I don't know what it is, if it's just a lack of personnel in certain cities, which are more obvious. Obviously, Jacksonville, Houston, I think would be the obvious ones there. But usually you have, if you think about LaFleur coming into Green Bay, you think about even Matt Nagy's first year in Chicago. You had these big turnarounds. You don't have that with a rookie coach this year.
And they're paying a little bit of a price for it, but again, he is not alone in that. All the first-year coaches in the National Football League are struggling. He did come under fire from some media types after yesterday's game because of some decisions he made and not going for it down by the goal line, settling for field goals. John, you said first hour, rightfully so. You can't kick field goals against Kansas Chiefs because you're going to lose because they're going to get 7. So you can't coach that way. Do you think any of that was the fact that he was a little gun shy after last week's debacle down by the goal line? The not so Philly special inability to score first and goal from the 1-yard line, that he was a little worried. Hey, I got to get something. I came away with nothing and got absolutely crushed for that last week. Do you think that factored into his thinking?
Well, it can't. I hope not. And that was, that was here against San Francisco. That wasn't against Dallas. So he should be over that by now, I would hope. a lot of the play call that got called back on the JJOPI, that's a good play call. That's a good rub route. That's going to work. That's a touchdown. The receivers just got to sell it a little bit better. So I don't know. It's usually about execution more than the play calling, which I typically say. And there was some lack of execution. I do think there's this. I don't know if you want to call it rabbit ears, but he did get a lot of criticism about no motion in Dallas, and all of a sudden motion is back. He got a lot of criticism about running the football. They didn't run it a ton, but you could see early in the game there was a bigger indication on that. You also can't listen to critics. You gotta be comfortable enough in your own skin to do what you think is going to win the football game. So I'm kind of torn on that. But when I talk about that 4th and 3, you made the right decision. And he's always talking about doubling down and slamming the podium. You got extra time to think about it. Look over the other side of the field. Look at Andy Reid. Look at Patrick Mahomes. Look at Tyreek Hill. Look at Travis Kelce. How do you come up with a field goal? Go for it. That is the one thing I don't understand. And that was very early in the game, but it is what it is at this point.
I want to give credit to a couple of guys on my stream and our stream. We love you guys, and a bunch of guys are here every single day. They watch us. They're loyal viewers, and we thank them for that. And they contribute here, and we don't bring them up much, but we should from time to time. So let me do that today. From Gannon's groupies, who sent in a bunch of points of view today. Bring back Nate Gehry. I hope he's saying that with tongue firmly implanted in cheek, but I know where he's coming from. The linebacking core was so bad yesterday, and everybody likes Nate Singleton because he plays as hard as he does. He plays like his hair's on fire, but he doesn't make any game-changing plays. They just don't have any game-changing play linebackers, John. And we know it's been an Eagle philosophy for, decades that linebackers are unimportant. But if you've got a defensive coordinator with a system that knows how to use these guys and position these guys, you can still see It's not like no team in the NFL has linebackers that don't make plays. There still are such teams, which means it can be done. Do you just continue in this phase of not caring about linebackers, so therefore not putting any resources like draft picks, money for free agents and like? Are the Eagles just going to continue to go, hey, we know how we view linebackers and we're not going to change our philosophy on it?
Yeah, this is a tough one because in one side of the fence, I kind of agree with them. Linebackers are not nearly as important as they once were in the modern NFL. But on the other side, I look at Devin Whites of the world and I say, well, they still make plays. Bobby Wagner for years still make plays. These great linebackers, these great 3-down linebackers. It's a little like running back on the offensive side. You say, well, we don't need a running back. We can find a running back. But then when you get a really good running back in a big spot, you go, oh, that's nice to have. That's kind of where you are at linebacker. It's nice to have, but you try to roll the dice and find it. They have tried to get guys. They bailed, obviously. LJ Fort, they tried to sign. He went down to Baltimore. He's injured now, played pretty well. Didn't work out here. You remember Corey Nelson, nobody remembers. They tried to sign him. He didn't work out. Eric Wilson now, they tried to sign him. These are mid-range veteran guys. None of them seem to work out. And then the draft. And then, Davion Taylor's the one guy who can't stay healthy. To me, I want Davion Taylor on the field. If he's healthy, and he played yesterday I think 8 or 9 snaps. He's back. Okay, if he gets hurt again, he gets hurt again. I don't think it's management from that perspective. I just want him on the field. Just why not? Because the other guys can't play. He's at least got athleticism. And then I want TJ Edwards on the field. And I know what they say. Well, we want guys who can cover the pass, and that's not his skill. But when you're giving up 200 yards rushing to Andy Reid, who doesn't even want to run the football, but you're allowing him to, maybe it's time to get the run defender on the field and then figure out the rest of it. Okay, you gotta figure out some other things in coverage to mask TJ Edwards there. Well, let's try that instead of keep doubling down on Eric Wilson, who couldn't tackle Jody McDonald evidently in the open field. Let's try something else.
Tackling leaves much to be desired. Along those lines, again, giving credit to one of our streamers, Cal Bundy, said, I'd like to see Jacoby Stevens at linebacker. They did use a draft pick on him. Yeah. They're converting him, so I guess there's still a transitional phase here, but why the hell not? Same thing with Davion Taylor. The only difference between Jacoby Stevens and Davion Taylor for me is one's got a year more experience and he got drafted a couple of rounds earlier. But they're both take-a-shot type of guys. They haven't done anything in practice or the preseason game. Oh, that's right. We don't play anybody in the preseason. To be able to evaluate whether they – so you got to go by baptism by fire. Throw them out there and see what they do.
I have no problem with the baptism by fire. Just understand there is a difference. I mean, Davion Taylor's an actual linebacker. Jacoby Stevens is a safety they're trying to make into a linebacker. So if you want to do baptism by fire, that's fine. But you might help the pass coverage with Jacoby Stevens. You're not going to help the running game. I'm trying to help the run support. Jacoby Stevens probably isn't going to help you there. If you want run support, I'm going to try TJ Edwards and I'm going to try Davion Taylor. That's who I'm trying. Is it going to work? Probably not. But I think you got to try something. You got to tweak something.
No, I don't know that Jacoby Stevens can't be better in the run than the linebackers they're playing right now. I know he was a safety, but
than Wilson.
I actually thought he was a pretty good hitter in the couple plays that he made in the preseason, but maybe I'm overstating it. Let me jump back over to the offense because, again, the bigger problem for me today is the defense. The offense did have some issues. Devontae Smith making the same exact mistake that Rager made. How do you step out of – how do you let a guy push you out of bounds on a route like that? That was disappointing, which was really disappointing because Devontae had his best game ever as a pro, and that I did feel good about, that he does look like the superstar that you thought you were getting. Again, these are all one game. He's played 4. Yesterday was one of them. It was a really good one that you can be excited about, but it is, again, very early in his career if you're going to make a statement about his entire career. I know Quez Watkins has opened a lot of people's eyes so far this year with big plays, and the Eagles need more big plays, and hopefully Quez can deliver. They should not have him returning kicks anymore.
No, I agree.
He was terrible yesterday at returning kicks. Rager returned 1. And we know, you and I have talked about this too many times on the show. It's kind of, you talk about, we can debate how much linebackers still have an importance in the game of football. I think that scheming it can still have an effect on how much you can get out of your linebackers. So I think that those who just throw the baby out with the bathwater there are wrong. You can make a bigger argument for kick returners not having any influence whatsoever because most of the kicks go into the back of the end zone. They just let them bounce, and everybody starts at the 25. There's a stat you can look up for me. How many kickoffs in the National Football League have started from the 25-yard line this year? I'm going to guess somewhere north of 66%. The 2 out of every 3 start from – it might be north of 75% for all I know. Quez did try to bring a couple of them out yesterday, and it did not go well. Should they just let it bounce?
Yeah.
We'll start
they
from the
do
25
pretty
like
much.
everybody else?
They do pretty much. If you look at the Eagles, it seems to be if you're 3 yards in the end zone, don't even think about bringing it out. Whereas you looked at Kansas City, Pringle, I think, he took it out a number of times, and by the way, almost fumbled himself. I always bring up Patterson as the best example. He'll take it out from 9 yards deep, but he's one of the best kickoff returners ever. Very few of those guys exist anymore. Most teams are willing to take the 25, and they don't want to mess with it. The Eagles are certainly in that category. But yeah, he got benched. I mean, he got benched for Jalen Reagor because he was so poor at it. And just watching Quest shouldn't be a kickoff returner because the great kickoff returners, they're different than punt returners. You got to have some power to you. You got to be able to stick your foot in the ground and go and break that first tackle and hopefully get a lane. He's not that guy. He's more of a shifty, punt returner type. I don't think he has that kind of ball security, though, to be a punt returner. But he strikes me as more of that short area quickness guy. There's different traits for those two types of returns. He's just not physical enough to be a top tier kick returner. So I would go in a different direction. I'd let Reagor do it. He's got more power in his lower body, and it's not going to matter much. I mean, we're going to talk about 10 kickoff returns or whatever. Like you said, there's not going to be a lot of them, but when they do it, I'd probably let Reagor do it before Quez.
Yeah, yesterday Reagor had a good one and Quez had two really bad ones. So I know it's not that big a deal, but we do try and break down everything here on Birds 365. In that vein, Eagles offense was fine yesterday. They didn't get some things done down by the goal line, red zone, whereas Kansas City scored every time they went in. Eagles did not. Was a help determine the factor of yesterday's outcome. But overall, I thought the Eagle offense was not bad at all. Jalen Hurts, not bad at all. The make it up as you go along offensive line, not bad at all, seeing as Lane Johnson couldn't go at the very last minute because of a personal issue. We knew the injuries they had to the other three positions at the offense line. So it was Jason Kelsey with Mo, Larry, Curley, and Shemp on the offensive line for the Eagles yesterday. They did a pretty damn good job. Give them credit for that. And we said that about this Eagle team before the year started. They had some offensive line depth, one of which was Jack Driscoll, who stepped in yesterday, did a real nice job. Where's Jack Driscoll going to play this week? Assuming that Lane's back, we don't know, but hopefully Mailata's back, because they didn't put him on the IR. They could have put him on the IR, so they were hoping it was going to be a 1 week, 2 weeks. Well, we're now up to week 3 of Mailata being out of the lineup. I was really impressed by Driscoll yesterday. Is he going to go into one of the guard spots if both guards are out again this week, which we know is the case because they're both on our IR? Driscoll outside at tackle this week. If not, is he going to grab one of those two starting guard spots? Is Dickerson a given to be playing guard the rest of the year? Do a little crystal ball work on the Eagles' offensive line when they do get some of their starters back as to how they're going to deploy the guys coming off the bench.
Yeah, this was a big, in my opinion, unneeded controversy leading up to the game. Nick Sirianni thought it was a competitive advantage. I asked him Wednesday, I guess it was. I just said, because Isaac is out for the season, are you going to move Landon to left guard? Because Landon's the guy they want to play every game. The young player they want to play every game. So if you move him now,
let me interrupt you, and I don't want to have you lose your train of thought. Again, this gets to the core of an issue I have with the Philadelphia Eagles. Landon is the young guy they want to play every week. Why? Why not Jack Driscoll? Because one was taken in the second round and one was taken in the 6th round? Here's the way I run my football team. If I'm a general manager / coach / owner, who's the best player right now? Who's showing me the most? Who's the guy? Now, if you've got a player who's on the last year of his contract, somebody on a rookie deal, all right, that's a big difference. And that can have some impact on the decision you're going to make. First-year player, second-year player, why don't you play the better player? If you're telling me that Dickerson's got to play because they want him to play, I got a problem with that because Dickerson was really bad last week. He was better yesterday, but he wasn't as good as Driscoll for me. Why is it that, and I think you've got a good read on it, you know the Eagles inside and out, certainly better than me. Why is that? Why do they always have to evaluate the players on draft status, where they were taken above and beyond what they've actually shown on the field?
Well, number one, I hear what you're saying. I think that's a better argument with Mailata Dillard before Jordan got hurt. because Jordan was playing well. Jack Driscoll wasn't playing well when he was playing last year. He was on injured reserve. He just got activated. Now, Landon wasn't playing well either at right guard. Now he's coming off the injury. They just think he's got a much higher ceiling as a player and that he is a better player. And I tend to agree with them. So I don't think I hear what you're saying, but I don't think that's the best example of it. Now, the whole competitive advantage nonsense, I thought Nick Sirianni, Andy Reid didn't give a hoot who was playing left guard or right guard because he's not worried about Landon Dickerson or Jack Driscoll at this point for the Philadelphia Eagles because they haven't proven themselves yet. But from the Eagles' perspective, they want the kid with the higher ceiling that they think is going to be the better player. And ultimately, they did move him to left guard, and he's going to be starting left guard for the rest of the season, barring injury. They were going to start Jack Driscoll at right guard if Blaine Johnson was there, coming off IR, which is a little bit of a surprise over Nate Herbig, because Nate's played a little bit more. You talk about he's also played better. Now, there's an example the other way, because Nate Herbig was an undrafted kid, came in under very difficult circumstances. Driscoll was a 4th-round pick, and all of a sudden Driscoll, coming off injured reserve, is jumping Herbig. So I think that's the better question. Like, why is that happening? That and Nate Herbig, by the way, ultimately has to play right guard because Lane can't play. Driscoll kicks out the right tackle. And we'll see. I got to rewatch the game. I don't think anybody played poorly on the offensive line. Now, a lot of that had to do with the game plan as well because the ball was out quickly. So I think Sirianni and the offensive coaching staff helped all those guys as well. But overall, and then the second part is also I want to throw in, the Kansas City defensive line stinks except for Chris Jones. So, whoever had to block Chris Jones had a day. Everybody else had a day off. So you got to put that into the equation as well. But I think your point is better indicated with Herbig versus Driscoll than Dickerson versus Driscoll.
Okay. I'm just saying, do me a favor. You got the Pro Football Focus numbers. I don't know if you got the access.
They've graded them yet.
But... Right. The access from last year. Maybe I gave Driscoll more credit for what he accomplished. He moved around to a couple different positions last year when filling in with the Eagle line going to shreds like it has again this year. I actually thought he played better. Maybe I'm overestimating what he did last year. I had no problems with the Eagles bringing him right off IR and throwing him in this week because I thought he earned that off what he did last year. Look those up for me. While we take a quickie timeout, we're hoping to be joined by Jason Cole, national NFL writer, Hall of Fame voter, has been on the show previously and is always good when he does join us. National NFL writer Jason Cole, scheduled to join us next here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Okay, but is the rim...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. 1 free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Mag and Mac here with John Birds, 365. Yes, there was a little bloodletting after a beatdown like the Kansas City Chiefs put on the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday, and the Eagles fall to 1-3. We're looking back at the carnage that was yesterday's game. Congrats to Andy Reid, first ever coach, 100 wins, 2 different organizations, got his 100th yesterday with Kansas City, which I wanted to bring up, Johnny Mac. That's funny. I just remember that by teasing this segment. I've not heard any fan feedback yet, other than our guys here on the stream. Haven't caught a lot of WIP yet. Had to hop on the air on CBS and didn't head out last night after my show was over, so I haven't heard any really fan feedback. I was wondering when I heard Patrick Mahomes in the post-game press conference take some Philly shots on how much reaction there was going to be from the Philadelphia fan. Wow. Thank you very much, Philadelphia, for firing Andy Reid. Ouch. Nothing like a poke in the eye. It's one thing to go out and throw 5 touchdowns against us, but then kick us when we're down too? Thank you very much, Patrick Mahomes. And Andy Reid is a Kansas City Chief. He won more games here with Philadelphia. He was here more years here in Philadelphia. The only thing he's done with you is, he won the big one at the end of the season.
Well, that's big.
He got the Super Bowl. And I acknowledge that that's pretty big, but it's not the be-all, end-all, everything. Patrick Mahomes. And God, he's so good. He's just so talented. I don't know that the Eagle fans would want him as of yesterday, because he did. He took an
they should want him, Jody. You know, it was interesting pregame. I just happened to catch the eye watching Patrick Mahomes. And this is, you usually watch an NFL pregame. It's not that big of a deal. You see quarterbacks throwing. He's out there. He's playing defensive back. Then he runs a route. Then after he catches the football, he runs to the end zone. And he does a little soccer, does a little hacky sack. The guy is so comfortable. He's so confident. You say to yourself, man, that's going to be tough to deal with. And sure enough, you look up after 60 minutes of football and you got 5 touchdowns hung on you. So it is obviously he's going to think of his coach and say, oh, Philadelphia fired him. And he admits the shelf life was over. But I do admit, I think sometimes, what if they Bill Coward this situation and fought through the lull and kept Andy Reid? I do wonder what would have happened, because this is one of 5 greatest coaches of all time, in my estimation. That's how good it is. That's how good he is.
He is certainly top 10, and he's moving his way up that list. Let's get an out-of-town perspective on that. Since we're talking about it, we'll give him a chance to comment on it. National Football writer, Hall of Fame voter, Jason Cole joins us here on Birds 365. How up the list of all-time NFL coaches has Andy Reid gotten for you, JC?
Let's see, who would be ahead of him? Belichick, Gibbs, Walsh, Brown, probably Lombardi.
No.
Yeah, Chuck. Shula.
I would. Yeah, Chuck was a better coach. I mean, look, they were loaded with talent. I mean,
Yeah.
But Chuck was a pretty damn good coach. I would say he's somewhere in that range of 8.
Yeah, well, that's good. I probably overstated it with 5, but certainly in the modern generation, he's number 2.
Right.
I would say.
Modern generation again. Where's Gibbs on that? Where's Walsh?
Yeah.
Where do you define them? If the modern era is the break in 1970 to the merger, he's maybe top 5. He's because you've got Walsh, you've got Gibbs and Belichick, who I think are absolutely better than him. But it gets to be close. I mean, look, he's exceeded guys like Holmgren. And was a pretty damn good coach. So yeah, look, he's going to be a Hall of Famer, in my view. I don't know if it's going to be right off the bat, first ballot kind of thing, but I think he'll eventually get in because he's going to have some numbers that are just outrageous. He's going to be, I don't know where he is on the all-time wins list, but he's way up there now, and that's the kind of thing that just isn't going to happen very much, I think, going forward.
Yeah, it is. I want to talk, Jason, about a larger perspective in the NFL. I want to start off because it's been big in Philadelphia, and that's been the uptick in penalties. The Eagles are on pace to shatter the all-time record, which was, I think, the then Oakland Raiders 2011. I think they're in the 160s. The Eagles are set to go in the 180s, high 180s, 190s.
Right.
The league as a whole has amped this up, coming off a year in which they really scaled back in the COVID year. They seem to say, let the guys play. Everybody seemed to enjoy it. Just from an aesthetic standpoint, is this league over legislated?
No, I think one of the reasons that you get sloppy play right now, and I think it'll correct itself as the season goes on, is look, guys don't hit in training camp the same way. They don't get prepared for the season the same way. So you have a lot of sloppy habits right now. And there's always an uptick in penalties in years where you're trying to enforce, certain rules, like, whether that's holding on the offensive line or whether it's the taunting rule. You always add a certain number that particular year until the refs feel like they've gotten the game back under control, and then they stop calling it. But I just think that this is going to be what happens when you have shorter and shorter training camps. And the other thing is, when you add 17 games, somebody's going to break that record when you get the 17 games now. A lot of people are going to break a lot of records with an additional game. But I just think the sloppy penalty play that I have seen so far, even from teams that normally don't get penalized, is just not being in sync. Like Matt Slater running out of bounds and staying out of bounds for 35 yards, like yesterday in the Patriots game. I was like, that's an absurd penalty for a veteran player who's that good a player to make. It's just like he's just not very sharp right now.
Jason, I noted this earlier in the show. I want to get your take on it. The new head coaches in the NFL, we care about it here in Philly because we've got one in Nick Sirianni. Dan Campbell, Urban Meyer, Robert Saleh, Arthur Smith, David Culley, Nick Sirianni, Brandon Staley with 2 wins. More power to them. They're 6-21. And I know you get a new coach. They're taking over. There's a reason why they got the job, because the team was bad the year before. I don't remember them being as collectively as a group this bad out of the gate as they've been this year. Is there something more to it than just coincidence? They're all bad teams. They were bad teams. They're still bad teams. Do we read anything into? Is there something to be said in defense of Nick Sirianni that misery loves company? All the new coaches are struggling mightily in the NFL.
They're not qualified.
Whoa.
Most are not qualified to be head coaches. Most of them are not ready. Most of them are not battle tested, and most of them are taking over bad teams. I'm like, David Culley is a really, really nice man. You guys know him up in Philadelphia. He was a long-time assistant under Andy Reid. Anybody who ever talked to David Culley he never exuded anything that ever said head coach. He's just not that guy. He's just not. I don't know Nick Sirianni very well, but when I watch him, I don't get the body language of a guy who exudes head coach. Dan Campbell, for all his fire and brimstone, is just kind of a lunkhead. Like it's more, and what I think is the urge to hire younger and younger guys and move them out quickly is doing a disservice to that part of the profession. And there's a reason why the last 3 Super Bowls have been won by coaches well into their 60s. You know, Andy Reid, Bruce Arians, and Bill Belichick. It's because experience matters in this job. Leadership matters in this job. Knowing how to handle, having the experience to know how to handle people in situations, and having the experience to handle what happens in a game, right? Like, oh, okay, yeah, this happened once before when I was an assistant coach, and this is how we dealt with it. And either I liked that or I didn't, but I made some judgment. And I'm not some 30-something guy who hasn't even coached in that many games. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some really good young coaches, right? I mean, Sean McVay is certainly a great one. And there are been plenty of other guys who were in their 30s who had those leadership qualities. But I think that we pick too many young guys who are not experienced enough when experience really does matter.
So, Jason, to follow up on that, why do you think ownership keeps going down that road? Why do you think ownership in this league keeps making that same mistake, or at least a large percentage of them? Is it Sean McVay? Everybody seems to want the next Sean McVay. And nothing against Sean. I agree with you. I think he's a good coach, but he hasn't reach the apex as some of the other names you've mentioned. Mm-hmm. Why are people turning in that direction, at least in a large percentage in this league?
There's no owner's manual for an NFL team. And most of the guys who own the teams know very little or nothing about football.
That's a pretty scary note. We talk about Jeff Lurie's participation here in Philadelphia all the time. He's been around for a while now, but he's a hands-on owner, and we hope he's a little bit better than what you just described.
And look, I would defend Jeff because I think Jeff really is into it and is trying to learn what makes a great coach. And the fact that he hired Andy Reid and he, made a decision to get away from the Chip Kelly experience or, some of these things. I think he's tried some things with good thoughts in mind, right? He's probably a little bit too hands-on for an owner, but he's learning. Whereas I think there are a bunch of guys in this league, particularly younger owners, who want to meddle and don't really understand the game. And there aren't that many human beings who really do this. And when you couple it with the fact that you have to have a whole lot of money and you have to be successful in business, that doesn't equate to a lot of people qualified to run organizations from the top down.
Jason, let me follow up with this on the young coaches. They got a young coach out there in Arizona, pretty young, and he's doing a really nice job. We're down to 2 undefeated teams in the NFL. Could be one by the end of the night with the Raiders in action tonight. Is Arizona as good as they look at 4-0? Because they were damn impressive yesterday going into L.A. and beating down on the Rams.
They're really good offensively, and I think they're dictating games early on, which is smart. They're getting on top of people and then forcing the other team to have to play from behind. I mean, they were up by 2 scores in that game pretty quickly against the Rams. Now, I worry about Arizona in 1-score games where they're not as easily able to just run the ball on people. Like, how are they going to react if it's a 17 left? Can they run the clock against a good team? I don't know if that's the case, but they're really good at, okay, we're going to get on top of teams by, 14-3, maybe 17-7 in the second quarter. that's going to play to other teams having to pass, and especially in this pass-happy era, they're going to pass even more. And we've got good coverage people, got good pass rush. So it's a really good combination so far. And yes, offensively, they're very explosive. Somebody I think will eventually figure out how to slow them down a little bit, but they're truly special. Look, we spent a lot of time in this league talking about Lamar Jackson. I think Kyler Murray is a better player because Kyler Murray can really throw the ball, and Kyler Murray can run just as well as Lamar Jackson. And so, to me, Kyler Murray is not talked about enough. Now, he was talked about a lot as the number 1 overall pick when he came out, but I think a lot of the discussion gravitates to Lamar Jackson.
Jason, speaking of explosiveness, I just got to see the Chiefs up close, so I saw what they are offensively, and it's pretty spectacular. But I want to talk about the other side of the football in Kansas City. And Steve Spagnuolo is an interesting guy to me because he's had tremendous success, but he's also been at the helm of some of the worst defenses of all time in New Orleans with the Giants. And that defense doesn't look very good right now. Can they turn it around? Can that be a legitimate Super Bowl contender unless they fix some things on the defensive side of the football?
Look, they're not playing with very much effort right now, especially early in games. I mean, there was one time, it was in the first or second series where they had Jalen Hurts like dead to rights. They had 4 guys, it was 4 guys with open shots at Jalen Hurts, and somehow he managed to get away from them. And not that Jalen Hurts didn't make a really nice play to get out from that situation, but I was like, you guys didn't close this situation out, and just like you have to bury the quarterback in that situation, right? And then there was another. It was like the first 4 plays of the game. It was like 18-yard catch by Ertz, 20-yard catch on the other side, 15-yard run. It was ugly, and it was like those guys hadn't even woken up yet, right? And you're sitting here going, guys, it's time to play football. And I don't know if that's Spagnuolo's fault. I don't know if it's, like they don't have Chris Jones and Frank Clark's not playing very well. I do know that historically with the Spagnuolo defense, it's much better at the end of the season because guys get in sync. It's like he brings the defense down to a very base level at the beginning of the season and then adds things and adds things and adds things. And they will be good enough if they can become a turnover-oriented defense. In other words, we're going to go and get extra possessions for Patrick Mahomes. We don't care if we give up 24 or 30 points, as long as we're getting an extra possession or 2 for Patrick Mahomes, because he's going to put up 35 or 40, and we're fine. Okay, if that's their philosophy, I think they have a chance to get there. If you're saying, okay, they're going to be a latter-day version of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that ain't happening. Okay, like that's just they don't have the personnel, and that's not the way they play. They play up tempo. We're going to have 2-minute possessions on offense. Let's have 2-minute possessions on defense. Let's get off the field fast and get the ball back to Patrick Mahomes as quickly as we can.
Jason, another NFL record that was set yesterday. We've talked plenty about Andy being the first 100 coach in the history of the game, but there was another one that was set yesterday. Kind of caught me off guard, as a matter of fact, and we have to keep an eye on it this week because of the Eagles' next opponent. Sam Darnold, 5 touchdowns rushing in his first 4 games this season. No other quarterback had ever done that in the history of the National Football League. I did not realize that, so shame on me for that, but is that a major part of the Carolina Panthers' weaponry? Now, since Eagles are playing Carolina this weekend, Sam Darnold taking off and running. I'm a Darnold guy. I'm a Jet guy. I watched him play all those years in New York before he went to Carolina. Every once in a while, he'd pull it down, make a nice play with his leg, but I never thought of him as a truly rushing quarterback. Did that surprise you, and do you think that's something the Eagles have to be very wary of this week?
I think there's a little bit of randomness to it, which is like they don't have a Christian McCaffrey is a great running back, and he's obviously hurt right now. But he's not a power running back at the goal line. So if they're going to run it in, and they're going to leave McCaffrey on the field in goal line situations, they're probably going to have to use Darnold a little bit more than teams will want. So that's number one. Number two, he is faster than I think I even understood. There were a couple of runs yesterday that he made. In fact, the second touchdown run was really a nice play on his part, where he got going a lot quicker than I thought. I mean, I didn't expect to see that kind of speed. So it's a nice combination. I don't see it's going to hold up over the course of an entire season. Not looking at a guy who's going to score 20 touchdowns running the ball, but he may get to 12, which is still a lot. Yeah. But he's not Lamar Jackson and he's not Kyler Murray in that respect. But God, they got a nice system around him, and he's playing really good football. Which I would say, Jody, I hate to say this, but that's commentary on your Jets.
A little bit. They've had pretty bad coaching.
Commentary on Adam Gase as well.
Yes, did get a win yesterday under Robert Saleh.
They did a nice job yesterday. They finally woke up. That I know it took like deep into the first half. They finally got their first half touchdown this year, and so hopefully they'll wake up, and hopefully this is the beginning of something good for Zach Wilson. But boy, the first 3 games were. Basically, the first 3.5 games were hard to watch.
Agreed.
That's true. Jason, as you mentioned, there's an extra game. So technically we're not at the quarter pole, but that first 4 games, people have said, all right, I can tell you what kind of team we have as we move forward. Everybody's through 4 after tonight. We just talked about some teams, Arizona, Carolina. Anybody surprise you? Anybody more disappointing than you thought?
I have a really hard time getting a handle on the season because as soon as I think the team looks like, okay, they're really good, they come out and they just play some putrid football for a while. And I'm trying to figure out why that is. Usually the first 2 or 3 games of every season is pretty inexact because, again, it's like extended training camp for a lot of teams. I would say the one stat that jumps out at me is staggering is the fact that the Patriots are 0-3 at home. It's both troubling and it's shocking and troubling. Okay. And I would say as good as that they played yesterday in keeping that game close against the defending Super Bowl champion. The truth is that if they were really good, they should have beaten Tampa Bay yesterday because Tampa Bay was starting a guy at corner, and granted, Richard Sherman is certainly a talented cornerback. Pretty good chance he's going to make the Hall of Fame at some point in time. But they're starting him like 5 days after they signed him.
Yeah,
and they lose Carlton Davis. They don't have a single starter. At a certain point, they didn't have any starter at corner from the first game of the season. That's a team that you should be picking apart. And to a certain extent, Mac Jones did that and played really well from about middle to late second quarter on through the game. But if that was a really good offensive unit from New England, they would have put up 24, maybe even 30 points. And they're just not that yet. Now, Mac Jones looks like he's going the right direction. There are a lot of things to like. He was good against the blitz, blah, 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 blah. But, boy, when you face a team that's that wounded, you should light them up. And so I'm worried about the Patriots overall, that this giant spending spree that they went on is not going to produce a playoff caliber team by the end of the season, which ultimately still may be okay because if Mac Jones turns out to be a franchise quarterback, they're looking good for the next 10 years, but we're a long way from that.
All right, JC, I'm going to do the schmucky talk show host thing with you now, knowing full well we've got 3/4 of a season to go and a playoff run and a champion to be crowned. I'm going to have to jettison about 11 months ahead. Opening day of the 2022 season, Aaron Rodgers will be the starting quarterback of what NFL team? Denver
Broncos.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good choice.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. That's what the word. It's not going to be San Francisco. They're married to Trey Lance, right? Not going to be Seattle because because Russell Wilson is not going to, he's not going to nice guy his way out of Seattle. It's not going to be either one of the LA teams because they're committed to Stafford with the Rams, and why would you move on from Justin Herbert? Maybe it's the Raiders, but boy, I have a hard time believing that Aaron Rodgers is going to want to play for John Gruden. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that, but like that just doesn't seem like a mix made in heaven once they really sit and talk. If you want to talk about a person who will pull that off, and I know he's not running the football operations technically, but John Elway will push in any number of chips that it takes to get that done. And we'll tell George Paton, go ahead and do it, because John Elway, as both a Hall of Fame quarterback and franchise quarterback, and a guy who went out and got a Hall of Fame quarterback and franchise quarterback, knows the value of that Hall of Fame franchise quarterback. And we'll say, look, we'll milk this for 3 or 4 years, whatever we can get out of Aaron Rodgers, and we'll be good. And it was nice, Teddy Bridgewater, for you to show up and be on our show. But we're all
in. Real quick, Jason, why do you think San Francisco, now this will be twice, when they look back on this and say, we could have had Aaron Rodgers, obviously, in the draft, and he wanted to play here, and then we could have waited and gotten Aaron Rodgers later in his career. You think they're going to rue that day the second time around as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a cluster fudge. Missed opportunities for the 49ers in getting a guy who's, and this is a lot to say considering some of the quarterbacks who've gone through that, would have been the most talented thrower that they've ever had in the history of their franchise. I mean, from an arm strength and arm talent and all sorts of things perspective, he's a better player than Joe Montana. He's a better player than Steve Young. He's certainly better than John Brody, and I can go that far back, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, they should kick themselves repeatedly for for not seeing that correctly both times. Now, coming out of college, Aaron Rodgers was not what we see now. Okay, he really worked on himself to become the Aaron Rodgers that he has become, and some of that was because he went to Green Bay and he was treated like crap by Brett Favre. Okay, so he had a little bit of incentive, but certainly the second time around, I wonder sometimes if Jed York ever kind of sits back and goes, boy, we pushed that panic button pretty early on in that trade to move up to number 3, and we could have waited this one out. And in fact, I've had one person who's very close to Aaron Rodgers say to me, they missed it because that guy was available and he wanted out. And if they had taken the draft picks that they spent to get to number 3 for Trey Lance, and basically maybe added a little bit more, they could have had Aaron Rodgers.
Very interesting, and I like your take on it being the Broncos, yes, and also Aaron Rodgers, better than Nick Mullins, although some people, when he signed here in Philadelphia this year, thought that might not be the case. I've never been a Nick Mullen fan. Obligatory shot out of yours truly. Can we do any obligatory promos and or previews for you? Can we shamelessly plug anything for you, Jason?
My book, John Elway, we're coming out in paperback in November 2nd, supposedly, although there are big delays in the paper industry and the book industry right now. So I don't know if it really will come out November 2nd, but sometime in November, Elway, A Relentless Life comes out in paperback, which is my biography of John Elway, which has gotten some great reviews. So yeah, that one is big, and I've got a couple other projects that are coming up, but they're not quite as formative to get into from at this point in time.
Let me know as soon as you do. We'll certainly get you back on and let you promo away. And yeah, you Bronco fans, you better buy the Elway book because he just landed you Aaron Rodgers, in case you didn't pick up on that. He's got Aaron Rodgers starting next season for you. Jason, always great stuff. Appreciate you coming on board. Thanks much, bud.
All right, guys. Take care. Thanks.
Thanks,
Jason
Jason.
Cole, national NFL writer, you're with us on Birds 365 and Hall of Fame voter. All right, Johnny Mac and I will come back. You know what's coming. We're going to put a bow on the show next here on Birds 365.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the memories. Go for the view that goes on forever. Go for the bubbles in your bathtub and in your drink. Go to bed whenever you want. Or don't. Go for him. Go for her. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass. Free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
Glasses for cocktails, right?
It's for this, 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 and that.
Is the length of the glass equal to your...
You betcha.
But is it made out of...
Glass?
Okay, but is the rip...
Smooth?
Will you stop doing...
That?
I'm the professional here.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. All from the company that's highly awarded. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, and deliciously tasting vodka. So good, it just disappears.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
When it comes to the fight against insurance companies, large corporations, and the healthcare industry, injured victims are always the underdog. But that doesn't worry us. At Messa & Associates, we're an injury law firm from Philadelphia, and we come to fight. Our clients know that they've got representation with a chip on its shoulder, and it's the same chip that makes Philly the toughest city in the country. Call 215-568-3500 or visit us online at messalaw.com. Messa & Associates, the toughest injury firm in Philadelphia.
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
All right, coming down the home stretch on a Misery Monday edition of Birds 365 as the Eagles give up 40 points for the second consecutive week. They face two good offenses, but their defense has been brutal, and we'll talk more about that as the week goes on. But J-Mac, I want to get your insight on an offensive question, maybe our last before we get out of here for Misery Monday. Yesterday, the Eagles' offensive starting tackles were Dillard and Driscoll. Not Mailata and Johnson that were the starters week number 1, and the guys we were hoping would have all year, but both have had injuries already. Injuries and or issues. Lane Johnson did not play yesterday because of a personal issue. Don't know how much filling in the blank you can do there. If you can, please do so. But if not, who's going to be starting at tackle for the Eagles come Sunday when they take on the Carolina Panthers? I ask you to look at your pigskin crystal ball.
Well, if you think about it from this perspective, if Jordan Mailata was placed on injured reserve, he would miss 3 games, and he would have had a roster spot. So hopefully that's an indication that the Eagles medical staff thought he would be back for this game in Carolina. And then we'll have to see. We'll talk to Nick Sirianni today. We get into clarity on Lane Johnson moving forward. I'll ultimately hope he's back at right tackle. and that would kick Jack Driscoll inside to right guard where he was supposed to start yesterday until it became clear that Lane Johnson. And that's what we're talking about. I did look that up, Jody. Nate Herbig was graded by Pro Football Focus as the 13th ranked guard in the NFL last season. Obviously forced into action to play a lot because of injuries all over. Played really well. For some reason, we were having that conversation. It's the undrafted guy versus the 4th round pick and Jack Driscoll.
Right,
default to Jack Driscoll. That was, I think, a better argument than Landon, who they think is a really good player. We'll see if it shakes out that way, obviously.
Understood. The reason why I brought it up, and again, there's long-term. I asked you to look up last year's. Thank you for doing that. But there's also short-term. I thought Herbig was bad last week when he got thrown in, didn't know he was going to play.
Yeah, he was. He was.
That's why I think they decide, let's go with Driscoll, the unknown of Driscoll in front of the, wow, Herbig got beat up bad last week. Well, Dickerson got it beat up even worse last week. And that's why I said, I know he was drafted in the 2nd round, but if you're putting urgency, recency bias attached to it, you're going to stick at the Herbig, but look right past what Dickerson did. That's why I had some issues with some of the decisions the Eagles made.
Yeah, I hear you. The Eagles don't like Nate Herbig. Nate Herbig was forced to play left guard, which he's not good at. They think he's better. He had success at right guard. It's just, that's an issue because always behind the scenes, we've talked about it in the past. For whatever reason, the Eagles think Nate Herbig's a backup, and it doesn't seem to, and he probably is a backup. I mean, that's probably the reason, but you get a sense, and then it's where you get into evaluation and ceiling versus the performance, what we were talking about. At some point, the guy played really well at right guard, and it didn't seem like he was even in the conversation. Just seems strange to me.
Fair enough. All right. And one other optimistic point that I was going to bring up at some point during the show, if it waits till the last 3 minutes, so be it. Yeah, the Eagles took a beat down. Yeah, the defense was terrible. But here's the good news. Outside of the Eagle game, well, no, the Eagle game included. Eagles draft status for the 2022 draft actually improved greatly yesterday. The Eagles lost. The Colts won, which you got to be careful with the Colts because if they're hideously bad, you and I agree, they're going to tell Carson Wentz, listen, we're going to do the same thing they did to you in Philadelphia last year. We're bringing in somebody else to play quarterback because we're not giving up that 1st-round pick. So they actually needed the win yesterday. Couple that with Tennessee's loss to the Jets and that division. The NFC South may be like last year's NFC East. First to 500 wins. If you can get anywhere near 500, you can win that division. And the Colts and the Titans are the only 2 teams who have a chance to do that, in my estimation. So that was actually a good thing that the Colts won the game yesterday.
Yeah. And this is going to be going on all season, Jody, before we get out of here. So right now, the Eagles would have the 5th pick, and that's Miami, the 7th pick, and that's the Colts, and the 8th pick, which would be their own. But as you and I have said, if the Colts are in that top 10, forget about it. They're going to shut down Carson Wentz. So you can get excited about it early in the season. It's not going to happen. But right now, number 5, number 7, and number 8 for the Philadelphia.
See, I got different. I looked at a different website. I got 4, 8, and 9, which is
I go with Tankathon. They seem to be
Tankathon. That's what I had. Did they upgrade it?
They might update it. I might have an old one.
I had 4. I had 4, 8, and 9, which are pretty damn good picks, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, for those of you who are saying, screw the draft, we don't need to. We got to get a quarterback who's already proven. It actually is helping with every Miami loss. Because if the Dolphins are the team that everyone keeps saying, if Deshaun Watson's going to go, if he's going to be traded, he wants to go to Miami. Miami should want him. Tua Tagovailoa always hurt. Your biggest ability is availability, and Tua can't play. It's reasonable. Who owns Miami's 1st-round pick this year, John?
The Philadelphia.
That would be
Eagles.
the Philadelphia Eagles. So I'm just saying that might be a big piece if they want to get their hands on Deshaun Watson. Part of a good show. We kind of had to beat up on the Eagles today, and we did, and we'll do a little bit more of that again tomorrow. We've got Carolina coming up this weekend. Should be a good week here on Birds 365. Thanks, brother. You got Nick Sirianni at what time today?
2:30, I believe. 2:30-ish. Yeah, it'll be interesting. See how he bounces back from the latest setback. Hey, it's part of I don't think any of us thought they were going to be Dallas, in Kansas City. So ultimately, you're probably where you expected to be.
They're 1-3, as a matter of fact. That's been my Eagle picks. Win the opener and lose the next 3. That's exactly what they've done. So we'll see what the coach has to say about it today. We'll be here to talk about it tomorrow on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Bum.
Oh, no rating today.
Not popping up. What the
Not
hell?
popping up. Oh, we're
They're
still
not
live.
giving us a chance to rate. All right.